I'm going to tell you the story of a day in which two things happened simultaneously. One, which was semi-common and didn't really mean that much on its own, and the other, which I thought was everything. Because these two things happened at the same time, I thought, this is my peak. This day and everything after will be the meaning in my life, and I will become the person I was supposed to be. I want it to be clear before I tell this story that I was wrong. In this situation, I was a victim. I didn't have the power or knowledge to change the thing that hurt me. I thought because of how badly it hurt, naturally, I would become a survivor. Being a survivor means having something to show for your pain, that you learn something or you change the thing that happened to you, or you put yourself in a better position to fight against it for the future, that you live a better life in some way. Yeah, not all survivors, not all victims can do that. I certainly couldn't. See, I didn't have the power or knowledge to change or prevent the situation that happened to me. I didn't have any ability to make something good out of it. And because I thought I had to, I thought that's what bad situations naturally are, I held on to this for far longer than healthy. So I wanted two things from this experience. One, I wanted it to have a meaning. I wanted to be a better, wiser, stronger, godlier person because of this experience and this experience specifically. And two, I wanted other people to see that. I wanted another source to validate my newfound strength and wisdom, and only then would I be okay. Have I mentioned that I was wrong yet? So, to tell this story, I'm going to need to tell it a little out of order. We'll talk about the non-important part and the aftermath and save the important bit for the end. But the point of telling this story is that this could happen to anyone. This doesn't have to be a specific situation about me. This could be anything that makes you feel angry and unfinished, that makes you feel like it's a reflection on you. So just know that before I continue. To make a long story as short as I can, when I was at the end of junior year in high school, a girl took a non-consensual photo of me, circled my face, and wrote, "Look, I found the terrorist," and uploaded it online. Again, this is the non-important part of the story. As strange as it sounds, by this point in my life, I've grown numb to racist comments, and I've had worse things happen to me than getting called racial slurs. If all that happened here is I got called a terrorist, I wouldn't be giving a TED talk right now. So I went to make this long story a little bit longer. Sorry, guys. Naturally, what happened was we were in our theology class because theology is boring, and this girl was bored, so she took a photo of me. And other students saw it, told her to take it down, expressed their disapproval, and even though she complained, like a lot, she naturally listened to peer pressure. And even though she did take it down, a girl wasn't satisfied, reported it to the dean. The dean saw it, made her take it down, gave her a punishment that was supposed to be the end of it. I go to school like everything's normal. I go into the hallway after my very boring theology class, and a friend of mine walks up to me and asks, "Are you okay?" And I look at her and say, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" She then has to explain to me a situation that is directly about me that I know nothing about. By this point, my first instinct was say, like, "Hey, what's this girl's name?" in the most colorful language I could, so I could report her to the dean. I saw it as something to just report, get done with, and move on, but she looks me dead in the eye and says, "Sandra, they already know." I didn't really know how I felt at this point. See, I was confused, kind of sad, but I thought this is a small enough situation that it shouldn't be an inconvenience. I should go on with my day like normal. I went to my next class, couldn't really focus. I used my lunch break to go and see a counselor. I asked her if she knew what was going on, but she wouldn't even talk to me. Her first instinct, even though she didn't know what happened or the situation that was going on, was to ask who told me and then ship me off to the dean. I didn't know why she would ask, as if I didn't have the right to know, but I trusted her, so I told her the name of my friend. It wasn't until she was walking me to the dean's office I started to realize how wrong that actually was. I almost wasn't surprised when the dean asked me the same thing. This time, I said I wouldn't answer. When I didn't give her a name, the dean disapproved. She said, well, I don't see why people are gossiping about it. The fact I had to explain it wasn't gossip probably should have been my first red flag. I asked her why she didn't tell me, and she said, it's a violation of the other girl's privacy to tell you what happened. What? This was something she did on social media. She openly admitted what she did and openly complained about what punishment she got, but the dean still refused to even say her name. I asked about my privacy. I asked why there was a non-consensual photo of me on the internet calling me a terrorist, and she knew, but I didn't. I was so confused. I thought it was beneath me to get upset over something like this. This was just supposed to be an inconvenience. I broke down crying in her office, and I didn't realize until later it wasn't because some girl made an edgy joke at my expense that I've heard a million times before, but it was because of the behavior of someone who's in authority. But, as confused as I was, I saw this as an opportunity. See, this hurt me to the point it was supposed to be significant to my life. That's how this worked. I was supposed to make impactful change here, so I told her about all of my experiences with racism at the school. And she seemed willing to listen. When I left her office that day, she asked if there was anything she could do to make me feel better. I told her I'd just get over it. Of course, if that's where it ended, it would have been terrible, but I wouldn't be talking about it right now. When I left her office, she proceeded to immediately call my mother, which would have made sense if she explained the situation. All she did was really try and suck up to her at work before I can get home and say, like, this is what happened. So when I went home, it was like, this is what happened. She insisted we meet with the principal. I'm going to spoil the story a bit here. The principal didn't know what happened. The dean made a bad call and chose to make something up on her own, some punishment that wasn't fitting, and which would have been tolerable if they just openly said so. Instead, they proceeded to lie to my mother's face. They made up some grand story about how they met with 4 people and an attorney and just decided it wasn't legally best to tell me what happened. The dean denied the gossip comment from a few days earlier. The principal tried to equate it to her finding a mean note someone wrote about me and throwing it away before anyone ever saw it. My mother stood up for me, but I was almost embarrassed that she did. I didn't understand I was getting lied to, and she was the only person in the room taking it seriously. When she asked about using this as a teaching tool for the student population, the principal proceeded to deflect all responsibility to the theology department of our school, saying it was somehow their responsibility in those boring theology classes to ensure that race issues didn't exist. I didn't think I was getting lied to, but I was still disgusted by the lack of compassion and how they chose to handle it. Okay, so obviously this hurt. I still get upset talking about it now, but this is the part I left out that makes it significant. The day I got called a terrorist, the thing that happened simultaneously, the day before all of this happened, I had reconnected with a friend who hadn't talked to me for a few months. This was someone really close to me who was going through something significant and had finally opened up to me, but I didn't know what to say. I rambled on and tried to say anything that sounded right. I probably talked for 20 minutes straight, and I couldn't remember anything I said to you except one thing. I told her in the middle, in a rushed state, it's okay not to be okay. And she cut me off and told me that's exactly what she needed to hear. That wasn't from me. I don't speak in cliches. In my edgy high school time, I thought, oh, that's just a disingenuous way of saying something I can make up in a much prettier sounding Hallmark Cardi way. I thought that my words were better than things that were cliche for a reason. I didn't mean to say it. And so I ended the night by looking in the mirror, closing my eyes and saying, okay, God, you win. Make me something you can use. I think you can see why this felt so significant now. I took this as the answer to my prayer. This really big, bad thing was my call to action. I would go through something worse than anything I had ever been through before and be better as a direct result. My character arc would be complete. I would become the person I was supposed to be. I'd be recognized for my special wisdom, my Hallmark card words. And someone would look at me and say, wow, you're doing such a good job. And my pain would end, and I'd be okay. I'd be recognized as being a survivor. But of course, life's not a movie. There's no pre-written script with a happy ending, and I'm not the star. This was just a bad, really bad thing that happened to me. But because I was treating it like the climax of my life, I made things so much worse for myself. It's okay to have scars and not be stronger because of them. It's not okay to make yourself a worse person and set yourself so far back trying to find the strength that you think is supposed to be there. But life moves on, right? So the day I got back to school, the dean, the counselor, and the girl had a meeting with me. I had to explain, yeah, no. You can't take a non-consensual photo of someone with a racist caption and put it on your story. Sorry. Surprise, surprise. She wasn't sorry. She wanted me to get over it, and the dean and the counselor thought I was being too hard on her. And while their continued expectation that I just ignore it, get over it, made me feel so much more violated, it left me so reaffirmed in my need for something tangible. I was going to be a survivor. I would have something that people could look to and see this experience. They could see this strength, and this would be who I was. It got to the point where I wrote, helped directed, and played myself in a one-act play about race issues in a high school setting. I was such a mess. I had so many issues. Whenever my principal gave a speech at school or at mass, I would actively spread the story when I thought she got too self-righteous. Only it stopped being about teaching anyone anything, and it was more about making them hate her as much as I grew to. I was a mess. It was a cringy mess who lived and breathed victimhood. It was all I was. And this attitude led to two things that inspired my senior year, two big events. One at the beginning and one at the end. At the beginning was a retreat. Regardless of if you were religious or not, everybody praised this optional weekend retreat. People were saying it changed their lives in 3 days, and they made friends they'd want at their wedding party one day. Naturally, the cringy professional victim I was, I thought this would be it. This would be my recognition. I went and I talked about the most significant thing that had happened to me the first chance I got, but obviously it didn't stick because I shared it at the first chance I got and not in an organic way. When other people talked about what they'd went through that was significant to them, much like the night with my friend, I tried to say things that sounded pretty, but nothing stuck. Okay, I didn't have any special wisdom, okay? That was kind of just an ego thing. Just because I was the one talking didn't make it useful or helpful to the people who were trusting me with the vulnerable parts of themselves. And so naturally, I wasn't chosen to lead any of these other retreats that year. And it killed me. Watching these other girls flock around the leaders and congratulate each other and get emotional and happy and start crying in the hallway as these girls would go on the 3 days that were supposed to change their lives killed me because they found community and importance in an institution that devastated me with a continuous reminder that I had nothing tangible to show for what I went through. I wanted what they had. They found something here that was valuable and important, and I was just sitting in my room upset every time the retreat came around. The second big event was at the end of my senior year. My theology teacher of that year was leaving our school because he got a job offer from the Catholic Church. He was going to change the theology curriculum for many of the Catholic schools in America. So when I heard about this and I remembered what my principal said to avoid talking about race issues, I wrote him a letter. It was 6 pages long. I explained what happened, and he called me into his office. He said he was sorry for what happened to me. I almost got excited until I realized he was talking about me getting called a terrorist, as if the worst thing in that whole story was getting called a racial slur. I was so upset, but here, I'm the one who got my hopes up. I don't regret bringing what happened to his attention because maybe he could change something. But I also wanted a validation from him, which I didn't get. I wanted him to see what happened and see why it was significant to me and say something about it. But he wasn't going to. He was going to use it for what he deemed fit because he's a separate person. And you know what? As much as I disagree with his interpretation, I have to stop looking for the validation I want from another source. No one on the outside is going to be like, I'm so sorry for what happened to you, and they're going to try and push me into being better. I had to do that for myself. I still had to be a person outside of being victimized. And I was convinced that this label was going to resolve me of any need to do work on myself and that I was just going to be better because other people would do it, like some tragic hero. But naturally, that's not how the world works. The only thing is, on my moral high horse, I could have told you the same thing back then. I went and found that old letter. I have a section where I talked about everything I thought I learned, and something stood out to me. I said, it's okay to be angry, but eventually you'll have to forgive and take your power back. Otherwise, you're just bitter. Here's the thing, I knew back then this was about power and re-empowering myself, but I didn't actually feel it. This entire section was just pretty words stacked on top of each other that I thought I knew but didn't actually. I never took any of it to heart. I thought I could be passive and not use any of my power because I was powerless when it happened, and that somehow someone else would see my tragic hero-ness or whatever, and I'd learn a lesson that someone else would impose on me, like the protagonist of some cliche story. That's not how the world works. Even if I could have learned some things from this experience, because there's not much to learn other than people calling you a terrorist is bad, it wouldn't be a reflection on my identity because who I am is more than the things that have hurt me. I still have to be a person outside of it. And what I do matters more because yes, what happened to me was terrible, but everything I did after was worse for my own development. I maybe lost friends by looking to validation and looking for outside sources of approval. I wanted people to be like, this is important. And I just wanted them to make me a person. I didn't want to have to try anymore. And you know what? I'm the only one who can make me better. There's one more thing from that that's kind of fitting, that letter. I said, life is more than pretty words and impersonal speeches. Well, here's some words that are for once just not pretty. I'm not a victim or a survivor. I'm just healing. Because I'm the only one who can heal. I'm the only one who would do this for myself. And I'll keep going because life is continuous. It's more than this one struggle. I'll be better and worse and better and worse and struggle and be better all over again because that's what life is. And if I wait for something else to make me a person, I'll never be one. Thank you.